Hi everybody, I just want to do a review of the brand new Horus Heresy Model Masterclass, Volume 1, of course, from Forge World. This book was just released, as far as I know, only just this past weekend at the 40th anniversary, or 40th birthday party for Games Workshop. And I wasn't able to go, but one of my friends was able to pick up the book for me. So I was really looking forward to getting it. I do have the Forge World Modeling Masterclass books and learned quite a lot from them. A lot of really good info and details from those books, and so I was really excited to get this book. And I'll just say straight up front, for the most part, the book didn't disappoint. And I'll get into that in a bit. And we'll just open it up and show you what's inside. So we'll just flip it over. And it opens up quite a lot like the Forge World, the Black Horus Heresy books, if you're familiar with those. Those are about, I think, £72 or $95, something like that. So these are pictures of actual models that have been tweaked a bit and made to look a bit like movie scenes and stuff like that, with embers and fire and flares and all sorts of things. Very cool. The front and back covers are just a bit different. I prefer this one. It's just a bit cooler with the knights walking about. But yeah, it just gives you an idea of the flavor that they're going for here. Of course, it is all about the Horus Heresy. And it says, interestingly, it's Volume 1, so I think we can expect a few more, or at least, well, you know, getting a lot of interest in the Horus Heresy stuff at the moment, so I'm sure we'll be seeing lots more of these. And again, I'll mention that in a few minutes as well. So we have a nice introduction. There's no actual authors or anything like that. It's the Forge World artists, painters, and modelers, and everybody that work at Forge World. One of the divisions of Games Workshop, of course. But you'll notice as we turn to these pages that they're not stark white like the earlier Forge World Modeling Masterclasses. These are Horus Heresy style, so we have this sort of aged kind of look to the pages. And we go right into the Questoris Knight STYRIX, which is the sort of the normal size Imperial Knight from Forge World. It's pretty cool. There's you get the finished picture here, which is quite nice. You can see it's got the clear red to it and everything. Cool base, and it tells you, you know, we go into this. But before we get into that, if you want to read the fluff, there's a bit of fluff here, and it tells you where they're made and where they're from and what they did, what sort of famous battles they were in. So if you're interested in that, there's that. But we're into the modeling here for the most part in this book. It was interesting for me because I've just built one of these and built one of the Cerastus Knights, which are the bigger, taller ones from Forge World that are all resin. This is like mostly plastic with some resin pieces. It was interesting for me that they started off with this one, so I was able to compare what sort of my technique, if you want to call it that, with the Forge World technique. So yeah, obviously I won't go into every single detail, but it is pretty cool that obviously they start with red and they shade it with blue and then green. It's pretty cool. Of course, they're pimping the Forge World air paints that they've got now. And the clear red, which I'm not sure, Angron red. And they go into a bit of detail here for stuff like masking, which is really, really important when you're doing stuff like this. I thought it was interesting they didn't do any basing with black, which is what I usually do, which is kind of just what everyone tells you to do. They just went straight to silver over the red. So it's one thing to skip down the road to get the same effect. So some pretty cool stuff. Of course, everything is GW and Forge World paints. They show you the details on how they do the lettering. I thought it was kind of funny here. It says, a computer was used to create and print. So they don't say anything about Illustrator or Photoshop or any of that stuff. It's just a computer was there. I do think it's pretty interesting that, and they actually show an airbrush in here, and they use the word airbrush quite a lot. It's no longer the Citadel spray gun. This is pretty cool. They did cover this in a couple of the tutorials in the previous model masterclasses. Of course, here they're just saying airbrush was used to spray a band of Calth blue. So blue, then purple, then red, then orange, then yellow. So it's quite cool. They say how to age the decals as well, their transfers. I thought this was nice. Basing is not something that I'm that great at. So this is pretty cool that they just mix plaster, sand, and glue and just straight in. Just make a rubble paste with plaster, which is pretty good. And then of course there's all the model porn that you can check out. This is one of the things that was mentioned, I've seen on Facebook a bit, about the yellow. Obviously it starts off nice bright yellow. They do make a point to say base it in white, which is kind of a no-brainer, but some people still insist on painting or priming in black with everything, which I find interesting. This is pretty cool. I believe it's a super heavy size tank. It's pretty cool looking. I thought this was a bit interesting. Obviously they're doing a lot of, this is the second picture where they're showing an airbrush. But here where it says, because they pre-assembled almost everything on it, they say, here it's, oh well, you know, it's a bit fiddly. So in this case, behind the areas where the vehicle's exhaust stacks, as applying masking tape would have been extremely fiddly, a brush was used to carefully paint black up to the trickier panel edges. So yeah, and then they mask over it and then just finish off with black. And then they're using a can, or they say they're using a can, when obviously they're using airbrush here, but it doesn't really matter either way. But personally I would use an airbrush because you never know what the thinners might do to that, but whatever. All interesting stuff. And then you think this is kind of the finished area, and then you go, oh no, they're doing more chipping here with the base color. Oh yeah, and then there's more stuff, and there's more chipping, and then there's more weathering and staining, and then and they haven't even gotten to powders yet. That's when I realized this. This is quite a big section just for this one, compared to the night that was the previous one. I thought this was pretty cool. They're showing vision blocks, as they call it, basically just the glass. Get strips of card and shade them so they look kind of cool, and then stick them in the vision ports. One thing this has kind of taught me, obviously decals are great because you don't have to freehand stuff like the lettering here or the skulls, you know, the kill markers or any of that stuff. They're using lots of different decal sheets, and they show that here where they actually say where they got some of these from. There's Mechanicum cogs, Iron Hands transfer sheets. Obviously there's probably Knight transfer sheets in there. That's where that one comes from, I believe. Also Scutari. So it always helps to keep those around. Next up is the Solar Auxilia. Of course, this is a big sales catalog almost. So this is Solar Auxilia is I think the newest army that they've got. It's basically the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum of 30K. So they have their own special weapons, their own special tanks, and all sorts of stuff. So this was basically built, primed, dark blue base, and then a lighter blue, and then a lighter blue to begin the pre-shading, as I call it. So this is pretty interesting, and here they show you what you end up with. That's a Imperial Knight sheet. So keep those around, grab them on eBay, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm not into the Solar Auxilia. I think they look kind of cool, but obviously I have way too many armies as it is. But I thought this was pretty cool because it shows how to replicate like proper thick mud on the tank treads and wheels and lower bits. And if you look at the close-up pictures, they show like just a collection of mud on the lower areas of the tank, which is pretty cool. And then they make a point to keep these I'm not sure what these are, but the World War I tanks had them. They basically help the tanks get over trenches. So that's where the tank would be skidding, and that's why it's clear. So pretty cool. I thought this is pretty neat. This is if you're into your scale modeling, like tanks and planes and stuff like that, you're fully aware of this already. But things like adding this, like rust stains, like just dripping down, not dripping, but that's literally just a rust stain. And they tell you to get pictures of here. Having a selection of photographic reference of aging military and construction vehicles will help greatly with the placement of oily washes, which is what they're talking about here. These important pivot points of the tank where grease is kind of seeping out into the mud. And if you go to a construction yard or a place like that, or a tank museum or something like that, you'll see this kind of wear and tear. And it, for someone who's used to seeing a brand new looking, pick your army legion tank, seeing this sort of thing on a model tank, it just really makes it, just enhances the realism just immensely. Now this is one of two terrain not full tutorial. They don't show you completely step by step because obviously it's huge. I've seen this thing in person. It's absolutely massive. If you count the tiles, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 8 foot by 6 foot or 8 foot by 4 foot. I'm not sure exactly. It is big. It is big. Not the biggest display that I've seen at Warhammer World, but it is one of the really cool ones. Now, obviously, it's Isstvan 3. If you're familiar with the Horus Heresy, this is the pivotal moment when things have really come to a head. So basically they're showing how they made everything, starting with the Realms of Battle boards. I believe the Forge World resin. Don't quote me on that. I might be corrected in the text, but basically with the plastic boards, and then built some of them up with blue foam, and then added in some of the Sector Imperialis type Citadel scenery, and then actually cast resin pieces so that they could replicate them. If you look at these light gray sections, those are all resin pieces. Down here, these are all the plastic pieces. And then, of course, this is a full 600-pound, or however much that is, $900 full resin Thunderhawk gunship that has been chopped up and has been strewn across this battlefield. And it ends up here. As you can see the gun there in the front of the ship there, and the tail section there. And this is what it looks like as it's still unpainted. I thought it was pretty cool. They do say they use copper sheet and copper wires to replicate the torn and twisted metal and stuff like that. It's really cool. This is neat where they show, I think it's 53 bolter guns they mention. And this is how they batch painted all the guys that ended up on the scene. Of course, there's loads of word bearers and white scars, I want to say. I can't remember. They do say here, though. Now I'm looking it up, so I don't know. They're white, so I think they're white scars. Loyalists. But obviously, all of these guys are painted up to, at minimum, a good tabletop standard. So, and they're all individual game pieces, on bases, and the dead guys are like the actual models and everything. So it is pretty cool. If you look really close, you see dead guys laying about. There's another one up there. He's been shot. So yeah, and if you've ever seen one of these, I believe the Reaver Titan in person, you get a sense of how big this display is. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now here's one of the sections where that kind of highlights to me that, of course it does say on the cover, Volume 1. But it highlights to me that there's going to be further volumes, basically. because Sons of Horus, obviously, there's the big man himself, Horus. And here's a selection of models. It's not every single model that they do. But there's loads of legions, obviously 20-something legions, so we're almost 20 legions. So there's plenty more to come, and there are other legions that are covered in this book. So I think they're probably planning 4 or 5 books. I would think, maybe more. Who knows? It is cool that they do show. Obviously, they show on the. I think it was this tank that they painted previously, earlier in the book, for the Imperial Fists, and this tank's quite similar. This one shows a special effect of this marbling or lightning sort of look, and they do tell you how to do that. They don't show you step by step anything on how to paint the actual models, though. I mean, the smaller models, the infantry guys, or Horus. This is kind of a. I don't want to say I'm disappointed, but I think they could have. I mean, maybe they were just really paying attention to page count, or they wanted to put in as many legions as they could, so that it applied to as many customers as possible. Who knows? But I would have liked to see maybe like a half a page on painting these guys. Some people don't need it, but a lot of people feel that they do. And I think it would add more value, definitely, if they maybe removed even just this picture and just put in, this is how we painted each of these models here. They could have even done it on the Contemptor. You get a nice, good close-up there. I actually have a Contemptor here. Alpha Legion, of course. So it's actually larger than life size on the page, and they could have said, well, I mean, they do say, this paragraph here, painting the army. A base color was created using a mix of equal parts, and this is where this was written or planned out well before they released the Forge World paints. Castellan green, Sotek green, Dawnstone, and Nurgling green. Highlight shades are created by adding more Dawnstone and Sotek to the base color, gold decorative trim, blah, blah, blah. Note, since these models were painted, Forge World has released a range of airbrush paints. The range includes 3 colors, Nocturne Green, Lupercal Green, and Sons of Horus Green, specifically created to aid in the painting of a Sons of Horus force, such as these guys. Now, that's great. However, and if you're a Sons of Horus player, you would know those colors are the ones that you want for your specific army. But they don't tell you which ones are which. I don't know them. You have to go and buy them from Forge World. And if you're outside the UK, you're kind of buying almost sight unseen. I'm not bitching. I'm just saying. Of course, yeah, there is online. You can go. It's not literally sight unseen, but you know what I mean. You can't. It's not super convenient to. Well, you can't even go into a Games Workshop store and get them. Horus Heresy, Horus himself, great model. This is actually, I think, the first Forge World model I picked up. Haven't built him yet. Been busy, but am looking forward to painting him. But, again, it's one model, and he's got, there's the hero angle, and it gives you close-ups on all this stuff. And it basically says, just taking the time to paint a model as cleanly and neatly as possible can look just as effective as adding additional detailing such as weathering or battle damage. Which, it's a nicely painted model, and if you're Golden Demon quality, I'm sure you can find flaws or think that, I could paint it better. But it would be great. I went to Warhammer Fest last year, and the guy who painted this model was there, and he had 8 different Horus heads showing all the stages of how he painted them, and just that one picture would be great. Maybe they think that that's a sort of beginner sort of level painting lesson. I don't know, but just showing something on how to paint Horus would be really cool. Of course, this was painted a year and a half ago or something like that, well before this book was laid out. So there are things to consider about that, but still, it'd be nice to have that sort of thing. And so here we go. This is the Isfahan 5 Drop Site Massacre, and they even give, like, again, like a bit of lore. I have read the books. I've read most of the lore in Horus Heresy Book 1, the Black Book, the Forge World book. It's a bit confusing trying to say all this stuff if you're not familiar with the Heresy stuff. But anyway, there's Ferrus Magnus and Fulgrim fighting. This is not the display that's in Warhammer World in the museum, because I was looking at this last night with a friend of mine, and I'm like, this isn't the display. This is completely different. This is way bigger. But it does show you, these are Woodland Scenics rock molds, in case you're wondering. Apparently they use resin. I use plaster, but I suppose resin would be a bit lighter, or a lot lighter. I just did a massive terrain build using loads of plaster rocks. So yeah, making the whatever it is where they're fighting in front of. It's got these cool blast doors that we'll get to in a next page or so. There's another crashed Thunderhawk. I think this is the actual Realm of Battle game board, though. The single board that you can get. Yeah, and there's the blast doors I was talking about, and there's the crashed Thunderhawk, destroyed Void Shield generator. So it goes into a bit of I think just enough detail for most, that would interest most wargamers. If you're really into your terrain stuff, you'll have a book or two, or at least several magazine articles about railroad terrain, which you can apply. But it's nice to see the same stuff from railroad terrain, because I can identify that. I have that actual rock mold, which is the same as that rock mold. That's the same exact rock. So, I can identify that sort of thing, and it's good to see the railroad and diorama sort of building techniques put specifically to use for a wargaming display. And this is obviously a fully playable board as well. You look at the size of this thing. It's really cool looking. And there they are again fighting, just so you get a sense of where they've swiveled the point of view of the camera. That's where they're fighting again. If you've seen the pictures, if you go on the blog at tinyplasticspacemen.com, there will be links to the Warhammer World Museum, which is where I first saw, I think it's probably these exact models that they've just moved onto this display board, or from this display board into the museum, because it's nothing like this. So you look at the side, you can see the lines. So that is minimum, that's 8 foot across right there. And then this big massive thing, this sheet that's printed out with all the drop pods coming in and the terrain behind it, that's all printed. It's kind of like a map painting in the old days for movies that they used to do before CGI was all popular. But so you have kind of a 3D effect. All the important stuff is there, and the stuff that you don't really need to pay attention to is in the background on a 2D thing. So this is as close as we get to lore Fulgrim, but we do have in a couple of pages, and some really cool battle scenes. There are some cool battle scenes. You see loads of dead guys again. We do have a bit on Ferrus Magnus. Now, I always tend to get Iron Warrior's Iron Hands mixed up a little bit, but obviously he's got the metal hands, the liquid metal hands, which he got somehow. Oh, there's Fulgrim. Yeah, forgot he was in there. So they tell you how how the studio modelers painted Ferrus Magnus's hands, which is probably, if you're reading this, that's one of the things that you want to know. You don't need to know how they painted his armor or his chains or anything like that, or the base. You want to know how they did his hands, so that's quite a cool thing. But that's all you get for Fulgrim, because we're straight into another Horus Heresy Legion, the Salamanders, of course. Again, we got the beauty shot of them on their sort of display board. We have some nicer close-up pictures, more close-up pictures than we had of the Sons of Horus. A couple pictures of Vulcan. and just some information on how to use, like the weathering powders there. Obviously that makes it look really cool. The rust effect there was really nice. This effect is pretty cool. And then, yeah, here's Vulcan. So pretty cool. Now this is, I saw this last year for the first time at Warhammer Fest, and this is gotta be probably my favorite display board that I've seen. Apart from like the really huge ones in the actual museum, but this is something that they actually take places. We've got guns here. This is the wall of a ship. That's a hangar deck. If you've never seen this before, again, I've got loads of pictures of this. They'll be on the Tiny Plastic Spacemen page. Just super cool. Haven't played a game of Zone Mortalis yet, but this is, got to be the ultimate setup, because you got ships there, even though they can't actually do anything. You got turbines or engine generators or something there. You've got guns that, again, they look really cool. And again, you got all the fluff here. It's like, why are the Imperial Fists attacking this ship? And who is the captain of this ship? If you're interested in that, you can read the fluff. If you're not, just read how they made it. So obviously, lots of resin bits again, lots of Zone Mortalis tiles. Don't ask how much they are; they're very expensive, but they do look pretty cool. I thought this was funny. These are just actually printed pictures, printed on a laser printer, I assume, or something, and then glued in place, and then they just airbrush the edges to kind of age the pictures in place. I thought this was one of the coolest things that really blew me away when I saw this for the first time. And that's when I realized this is the outside of a ship, because obviously, again, there's the hangar bay, there's the guns that are sticking out, comms array, and then you have a freaking Charybdis drop pod claw attack on there, and then it blasts a hole, which you can't really see on these pictures, but you can see it just there. There's a circular hole where the melta-guns on the bottom of the drop pod have made a hole, and there's just streams of yellow guys coming through, so it's quite cool. So yeah, a couple of Citadel Aquila Strongpoint kits for the defensive guns that face out, heavily modified. And there's a really good view of the hangar. There's the drop pod, looking really cool. You can see where it's, like actually anchored itself into the side of the ship, so it's quite cool. And again, these are all the actual ship pieces, and this thing it's actually smaller than life size. It's quite a big drop pod, and it might be actually about life size, but you can get a sense of how big the actual models are, and they replicated all the ship outer wall portions. And ooh, that's it. Didn't realize. But yeah, so anyway, let's see. So just going through the table of contents again. The Questoris Knights STYRIX, I thought that was pretty good. Definite thumbs up. The Legion Falchion, pretty cool. Armored Transport, pretty cool. Betrayed at Isfahan, pretty good. I don't want to say anything really let me down. The only parts where I wish they would have put more in was the actual Legion pieces. And, looking at the table of contents, there are only 2 Legion pieces, sections, Sons of Horus and Salamanders. Interesting that they put Ferrus Manus and Fulgrim as, they're obviously the Primarchs of their respective legions, and not pieces about the legions, those legions themselves. But, I can only guess that they went with the models that were already painted and prepared and ready. And, it's I think this is Forge World Studio, so it's not Black Library making this or White Dwarf or Games Workshop. It's Forge World, so they, I can only guess. and maybe it's a question I might ask the next time I go to a Warhammer World event. But overall, quite happy with it. I mean, it is £30. You know, it's not a £50 book. If it were, I'd expect a lot more. But it's in the price range of the Forge World Model Masterclass books. You know, if you've been around Games Workshop, the hobby, as Games Workshop like to call it, you will have seen guys on sticks, bolters on sticks. You will have seen all this stuff before. You know, I mean, if it were me, if I were absolutely nitpicking, I would maybe drop a couple of these pages and put something more about the painting of Sons of Horus. I would have dropped one of these pictures and done something more about the painting of Horus himself, or something like that. You know, like they did for Ferrus Manus, or, you know, maybe an extra few steps. The terrain stuff, really, really cool. I mean, for me, I'm a terrain nerd. I love this stuff, although I don't get enough time to make as much terrain as I want. I mean, well, I'll show you if I can do it without being too jerky. These are trench boards that I've got built, and they're literally gluing as I'm doing this, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing it down here in the dining room. So those are going to be trench boards. But yeah, I love my terrain. I have way too much of it. But you know, it's fun to do. I'm more of a modeler than I am a gamer. So anyway, that's who this is aimed at, and the Horus Heresy fan as well. So I thought it was quite interesting that they put the fluff bits in there, the, you know, the narrative stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. For someone like me who's not super into the narrative stuff, I have read the books. I kind of just go through them. I don't remember them word for word, or, you know, I remember some of the coolest bits, but, you know, I'm not a mega nerd about that stuff. I'm more mega nerd about this kind of stuff. So that it's kind of nice to go, oh well, yeah, okay, well, and then you just get, you know, you turn the page and you're into the modeling. This one, I say that the best sort of breakdown is probably the Falchion, and I thought that was pretty good, because it's a nice long piece. You know, look how many pages that this one section is for all these pieces. And like I said, I was turning the page. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, they're about done. Ah, no, they're not. There's more to it. There's more to it, and there's more to it. So there's lots of cool little extra techniques that I can take and put in my little, you know, bag of tricks. I literally have not a bag of tricks, but a file on my Google Drive where I put, you know, all this information, you know, how to make an oil and grease mix, and I just have it prepared. You know, it's what is it? It's pledge and black ink and brown ink, and you know, the clear pledge. So I thought that was pretty cool, and you know, showing how to do this stuff. I think if you haven't bought fully into the Games Workshop and Forge World paints, you might be in a little bit of trouble because of things like the specific metals that they use. But if you're buying a book like this, you probably already have your specific selection of metals already. I do. I'm not worried about matching exactly. You know, I go, oh, it's a very light silver. Great. Okay. I'll just use that. You know, Tamiya, they used to, on the painting guides, they would say Tamiya clear red, Tamiya clear green, that sort of thing for the Forge World, the actual Forge World notes on how they painted things like the Alpha Legion. So, you know, that's Tamiya clear red, or it's thinned Angron red, as they put in the book. Whatever. So, all in all, I would definitely say, you know, if any of this is an interest to you at all, it'll be worth it. If it's your very first modeling book, I would say, if you're really into the Horus Heresy, then yeah, go ahead and get it. If you're not into the Horus Heresy, the Forge World Modeling Masterclass books are pretty good for what they are. There are other ones available. I don't want to sound like a BBC presenter, but the Ammo by Mig Jimenez books are really good. I've got most of his Weathering magazine books. But they are most of the things that you can find out there are more for tanks, and a little bit for dioramas when it comes to wargaming and military stuff. For diorama stuff from the various like gaming convention type places that I've been to here in the UK, it's more about railroad stuff, and you have to adapt it. So it is good to see, like I said about the terrain in here, the terrain pieces. It is good to see that there's specific things for, here's, modeling building damage. It's not a full tutorial on it. I mean, you could probably have an entire magazine article that is literally just this, this corner of this building and making that one thing. But if you know what you're doing, you can extrapolate and kind of merge the information that you've gleaned elsewhere. So anyway, I hope it hasn't gone on too long. Please check out the website, tinyplasticspacemen.com. If you're on Facebook, give us a like at, just search for Tiny Plastic Spacemen on Facebook and give us a like, say hello. And this has been Frank, and I hope you've enjoyed this review of the Horus Heresy Model Masterclass, Volume 1. Thanks for watching.